hello, my Python scholars. Again, hope you're safe, sound, warm from all the snowy weather that we've been getting. So, this is week 2022, and you can click the listen up, click sound to get an overview of all the lessons that we will be embarking upon this week. So, how was this week? I want you to definitely let me know that on Schoology. There should be a place for you to actually share. This lesson is from Unit 3, 3.2, using variables in Python programming. You may see it as just variables, which is fine. I've just expanded the title so we'll know exactly what it is. So let's get started. This is going to be an introduction to variables. You may have heard the word in your math classes before. So in this lesson, you're going to learn how Python handles these different types of data and variables so that we can store some data. So upon completion of this lesson, you will be able to define and utilize variables, and you'll be able to distinguish between the different variable types, which is integer, string, and floats. That was a bonus. I didn't include that on the learning objective. So you can actually see with this image at the bottom, the various Python variable types that are available to us. So let's begin. Let's dive into this. What is a variable? So a variable is something that stores information in a program so that it can be used later. Now, a way to really think about this is thinking about a variable as a jar. Each variable stores one value. The labels are there to help us remember what is inside and what's stored. Why does it even matter? Well, it tracks the value easier for you, so you don't have to think about it. It changes the value without changing the code, which is super, super efficient and very helpful to programmers. Now, when we are creating a variable, there are three things that is going to happen. You're going to name it, it's going to have a type to it, and then it is that value. So I've created one here, water um, per shower. This was a project that I was working with some other students previously. And so they needed variables to count the water usage. It was a conservation type of project. So those variables were certainly helpful and useful. Now, to dive even deeper into what is a variable, again, the variable names that store value. So if you set the value of a variable like this, the variable name equals that value. So if you look here, I'm going to give us a little context here. We have the X and Y coordinates. We've given it a value. We also have given the word hello. Now, this is an example at the bottom to reference it, which we'll talk a little bit more how we're calling it. So message equals hello friend, how are you? Sprite dot say message. So if we with us calling it, what will this sprite say? Well, it put message in here. So it's going to say, hello, friend. How are you? And that's the magic of using variables where you can store it and you can call it when necessary within your programming. So a variable, again, has three things: the name, the type, and the value. So in this case, we have greeting equals hello world. Print greeting. So you're calling it there. So the name of this variable is greeting. The type is a string, which we're going to break that down, which I'm going to break that down, the different types. And the value is hello world. Again, a variable has three things: name, type, value. So in this case, we have my number, which is the name of that variable. The type of this is an int, int, and we called it there, and that was the value here. Now I'm going to break this down a little bit further for you. And what exactly are these data types? So the STR is a string. That means it's text information. It can be letters, it can be characters, um, always within the quotation marks, and it's short for string. STR is short for string. So I want to make sure that you saw that here. We're using a string. Then we go over to the INT, which we were just talking about, which is your integer. It stands for integer. It is a whole number. It can be a positive number, a negative number, or zero. And this is the value here and here for integer. And then that bonus one that I was saying about is a float, which is any number with a decimal. And it stands for a floating number. And that is your pi. I had to put that in there, 3.14. Anything that has any fractional number that you have with a decimal, that is your float. Okay. Now, your first variable that we just went over, you want to check out this program. I want you to use that other program. Just check out and use that as you in your sandbox. So again, a variable is created and updated in Python using what we call the assignment statement here. Again, just a reminder, that's the variable name, that is the value. Now, you want to find out a type of variable. You can literally type this in and then it'll give you what is called class, and it puts the actual data type there for you in single quotation marks after the word class. So we know that str, that's a string, so it tells you what it is. So if you're kind of nervous, this is how you can actually check your work to make sure you're using the right data type. And same thing there. So the commands you learned in this lesson, again, your variable equals a value. Again, that assigns the value, or as I like to say, it's the container that stores something that you're going to use later. And then the type element, knowing what type of data type that you're using. Again, these are our buzzwords. You can go back to this. Again, a float is short for the floating point number. And as a recap, write one thing you learned about data types and variables today. And how will you use this lesson? How will you use this lesson material to help you improve in your programming skills? Again, I will have some announcements and you can click there. I know that was a lot of learning. Make sure you take the action of completing all of your assignments in CodeHS. Reach out to me for support, You can email me, or you can do comments within Code HS or Schoology. And these are just some things that you can look back for commenting and just some programming practices. And I wanted to share this. Companies that are using Python, I know they're familiar to you. So that is it for your lesson 3.2. Enjoy your day and continue to code.